Spring School Board, you are live.
Thank you so much. Okay, I would like to call the meeting to order at 7:15. Julie, would you do roll call, please?
Barbara Naden.
Here.
Tim Frazier.
Here.
Dave Conlon.
Here.
Amy Rivera. Here. Pat Brayman.
Here. And prior to this, we were in executive session going over contract negotiations. And so if we could all rise now for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is a work session where we will have public commentary following each topic. And the first thing we're going to go over is the punch list for our capital project. We have Jim waiting from BBS here with us this evening. How are you, Jim?
Hey, Jim.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
So, I don't know if you want me to screen share something or just read from what I have prepared from the updated list that we've received.
Are the things that are drawn through with red, does it mean those are done and they're not on the list anymore? Okay.
Yeah, so all the items that are crossed off have been completed, and items that haven't been crossed out yet are in process of being done. But just to summarize from what I've seen, the site work contractor, Landtech, he's 99% complete with his punch list. I think there's 2 items on there, one of which is a painting item that's going to be weather dependent. So if he gets a warm day and a dry day, they can get out there and do that work. So there's really not much more on their list. They did get the bollards done out front, which from what I'm told look very nice. And we're looking to get a few more done, I guess.
The balance in
The green poster out in front of the school.
Right, yes.
But the problem is, we spoke with the staff, Josh was out there, we don't believe that there's enough. We can actually see where cars have hit the curb.
Oh.
So we'd like to add 4 more on each side so that they would be even. When you're looking, in the traffic circle, it's straight across even. They're working on getting a price for us, and of course Landtech will come back. It will be separate because Landtech is 99% done, so we want to close it out. It would be a separate purchase order.
Yeah, who chose a design for those, by the way? Not that I want to be picky about it, but.
I think that was part of our landscape architect's idea and thought, and something a little more stylized than versus just a plain cylindrical shape.
Yeah, but it doesn't go, it's just my opinion perspective, it doesn't really go with the simplicity of the building. It's, to me, it looks like those things that you are outside, restaurants or something where you have a cigarette.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
That's
true.
I mean, it looks like that to me, and I don't know.
I have to say, I've been at a few schools over the last couple of months, and they have really put up a lot. Like, even if they had some before, they have made perimeters.
I don't mind putting up more of them. I just thought maybe more modern, or it goes with the whole front of the building. I don't know. I didn't really. That's just my perspective. So it's too late to talk about it now. But I just, again, it's who's making decisions sometimes about stuff like that. Maybe it'd been nice to talk about that beforehand. Do the committee, the building and grounds committee, or somebody. Other than just like Landtech make that decision just because they wanted to make that decision. Who knows? Were they cheaper than the others? Were they more expensive than the others? I don't know.
I think it's a John Longo question.
Yeah, I think they were no more or less expensive. They probably could have been a different style, but wouldn't have cost any more.
Right. I think maybe my fellow board members could just go take a look at it and see if they feel like it fits into the rest of the core design. And then I just maybe Just maybe me.
You may have to get rid of the sign in front of the building.
Well, I love that. The next question
We'll have
is,
to zoom in on it.
What is it?
are we gonna get a sign? Is that in the works still, of getting a sign for the school?
The front, yeah, we need something. Yeah,
You mean old front?
yeah. The original front.
But that was the intent the whole time, is
Yeah.
that we would change that sign and put something else.
Right, and there were some drawings. that-
Yes,
Yes.
they were. To revisit the drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was the question of whether it was gonna be just a sign with, letters that replied in it or a lit up sign. I think we went away from the, LED type sign to something that was more, traditional.
Right. Like the back of the building. I thought they were gonna mimic the back building, the front of the building. Well, the front of the building was the back of the building. They're gonna mimic that, so we'll talk about that.
I'd like to see what they're planning, what they're planning.
It's like a different font.
And are these metal?
Yes,
Yeah, and they're bolted into the ground.
Okay. You're the artist.
They look like chess
They
pieces.
look
Yeah.
like chess pieces. I don't know.
Oh,
yeah.
They're over by the garage as well.
I mean, it's just stacked. Well, man, it was, it'd be great. You like them?
There you go,
I mean, I think they look fine.
Maybe one more day,
I
one
don't
more
think
day, right?
I don't think they're aesthetically displeasing. Yeah.
No, not bad. I mean, are they properly spaced? No?
Yes.
Just have to add some.
Yes, yes, so that a car doesn't go through them.
No, it's looking like,
It might have
The,
been
the,
angled
the
up.
front is open,
yeah, how wide is that opening?
that needs a different one. It needs.
It gets a
one that-
removable mullion, a removable one.
It's not done yet.
It's not done yet.
See, it's not completed.
It's not complete.
I didn't say it was.
Someone said it was completed. Not you, Jim.
No, I probably did, except for that one not being there, but it's removable and they.
No, it is done, right?
Yeah. So the general construction contract work there, my estimation about 75% complete with their punch list. They're still waiting on some doors to be delivered, which I understand are in the process of being shipped. Majority of the items that are on that punch list are door related. And I guess it's only because once those doors arrive, the contractor will be out there and get everything taken care of all at once. And there is, a lot of patch and touch-up paint that remains to be done throughout the building, and other work, as you'll see on the list, that's stuff that they've been trying to tackle as they've been making progress each night that they're in there.
Talk about the garage doors, Jim. What's the plan for the garage door on the portable?
So we have, the contractor just wanted to get some verification on where they could have attachment points to that metal panel. We gave them information on that. So they have what they need in order to set up their framing to support the tracks for the overhead door and the motor that controls it. So they got that information this afternoon. So hopefully they should be able to proceed in getting that installed.
Because it's here, right? Is the door here?
The materials are now on site. Yep. Yeah, this is just the last verification. We want to make sure where they set the angles on that existing metal system where they can attach to, so they can support the tracks.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
Most of the rooms, it says, I'll give an example of this, the existing rooms, number 22 said the art room. Number 1 just says typical items. And it says that in a lot of the rooms.
So typical items are do final cleaning in those spaces. There must have been a lot of dust and debris at the time the punch list was put together. There was some issues with the door. The doors that were installed were still temporary at the time on most of the spaces. But I think most of those typical items have been addressed, especially the cleaning parts of it. and the, final, securing of the doors. A lot of the spaces may have had some,
So Jim, how do you
Yes.
feel after you've gone through all this? I mean, and where we've been in the past, where do you feel good about where you are, and what are you looking at, say, for a total completion at this point?
right now, feeling pretty confident that initially it took a while to get these guys started and getting the work done, but each time I see an update to the list, there's a lot more that come off. So I'm feeling better now that there's, that we can start to see the progress, which is a good thing. I mean, the one big thing you're experiencing now is that you have controllable heat in the building with that new fancy BMS system. I mean, that by itself, is a huge improvement. So that's just going to bring you guys into the next, century of technology with your equipment. Once we get into the rest of the building eventually, then everything will be controllable from one location. But as far as the how I feel and what work's being done, there are a couple of things that I'm concerned that I'm not totally happy with. Some of the workmanship, we keep going back and fighting with the contractor on to make things look right, to make things appear right aesthetically, and the workmanship could have been attended to a little bit more. So we're not going to just let it go and sign off on it just to get them out of here. We will follow through and make sure that everything is done to our and your satisfaction and in conformance with the intent of design documents.
Thank you. That's really important.
Yeah, so we're getting there, and we are constantly following up on all that. The list that you have in front of you, whether everything has been crossed out, we still have to do our final go through, and as I was saying, make sure that although they said it's complete, we want to get eyes on it and determine if it's complete to our expectations and yours.
Jim, can you talk a little bit about not the lighting, the cameras, where we are with the cameras?
So the cameras, we're going to be getting them installed. I don't know if they were delivered. I think there was a final decision about going forward with the camera system that was specified. There was some question as to its, I guess, usability with some other, I guess, federal stipulations that they don't use that type of camera in a government building, but for a school, they should be, I think, determined they'll be adequate and suitable for that, no issues. So now they're going to proceed with getting those cameras installed now that we've been given the direction to do so. I don't know, I don't have a timeline on that just yet. I think that was all in JVR's scope of work, so we're getting him focused on the work inside the building, which he's been addressing, and then he'll have his subcontractor that does his security work come in and do that, possibly during the break. With that, I think there's some security card swipes and audio intercom system at the front door, the new front door. So that'll be done as well with that contractor. They do have the material, and now they'll be able to get in and install that as well.
We need JVR here and Forerunner at the same time for the phones and the overhead PA system to talk to each other.
And for, yes, you're right.
They go up the solution for facility, for faculty room, and camera in the heat.
Yes, I showed it to Steve Toget today, and I think he made a phone call to you, Jim, about the heating system in the faculty room.
I wasn't aware of that, but I may have spoken to Dave.
Okay. It needs the plumber to come out and cut off or vent.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the board, for total, remember we had heard that there was, when the teachers were here at the last meeting, and then Pat and I went over to take a look. And what they did is they put the cabinet right above the heating, and they say that that's typical in other places, but then they vent it.
Yeah, it's supposed to have a vent in the top cut into it so that it allows the heat to flow through. And that's yeah, it's a typical detail that they use for casework because they a lot of times put the casework along a wall that has a heating system. And it just allows, the heat to flow up and out without being, trapped behind it.
Yeah, but what's happening now, Jim, is the cold water pipe and hot water pipe are right above the heat. So what happens when the standing water is sitting in the cold water, it reaches a nice degree of hotness when you turn the cold on for the first 5 seconds.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Heat the cold water pipe up for about 5 seconds. You gotta let it
Right.
run. You gotta turn it off. I don't think you just cut that heat in, because that is a steam heat unit, so you either got insulated with the continuous loop. So just venting it with the pipes above it. I happened to see that when I was in there last week when that didn't work, and that's when they looked at it while I was here. But any standing water in that pipe's not hot.
Yeah.
It's not hot. But the cabinet was baking. And that was also when they were working on the heat too.
Yes.
So maybe it might dissipate, because there was a problem with the heat cabinet
It's
too,
still
right?
hot, it's about 88 degrees.
That room was not smoking.
Yeah, it was very, very warm in that space.
We showed it to the gentleman that was out today to show us the system. He walked the entire building. In fact, he's still here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, the BMS.
They did something, they took the thermostat out, and put something else in, it's not really a thermostat. So now that room has no way to regulate the heat.
they put a bug in there, right? It looked like a bug on the wire.
Yeah, I think they thought that it might be able to be controlled by the BMS system, but it's part of the whole steam heat
Yeah.
system for the rest of that
Yeah.
section of the building. It has to work off the pneumatics. So they're gonna have to put the pneumatics back in place.
So it's more than just a.
Yeah.
Well, let's leave it to the experts.
We need a plan, Jim,
For the rest of the heating?
for that room.
For that room.
Oh, yeah, yep. Yeah, I made a note that we'll get someone out to take a look what needs to be done with the pipe. Yep.
No, it doesn't.
The mechanical dividing wall working in the gym?
No,
Not yet.
that's planned for the Christmas break along with those metal covers.
Yeah.
Both, those are the two things that are still left to do in the gym.
Yeah, they also have to get in there and do the lift for the projector and hang the screen, get the doors running, functional, and the floor boxes. So those are the big items that are on Stalco and JVR's list. Because
We
there's,
just got the list 10 minutes ago, 10 minutes forward. As soon as we got here at 6:30, then we went to exec session. But the guy haven't looked at the list yet.
They still have to work on that glass window between the PT room and the gym. That still has that crack in it, but they
Yes.
can't fit the other glass in. Something's wrong with the frame.
yeah, that's on there. That's one of the items on the Stalco punch list they need to take care of on that. And we're going to suggest that they put a piece of plexiglass in front of that on the inner part of the frame. The frame is kind of a deep, 6-inch deep frame. They can add a piece of plexiglass to protect that inner glass.
How did it get cracked?
It was cracked day one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So are there other large items that have to get
Nothing.
taken care of over Christmas break?
The only other large item would be the, so the partition, the lift of the projector screen. There's a couple of faucets and sinks that have issues with their control, whether it be the handles aren't working right or the faucet itself isn't properly installed. So those things are getting taken care of as well. I think that was in the science room. There was one, I think the eye wash station had a problem. It wasn't functioning properly. So the plumber will take care of that. The doors, hopefully that'll all be taken care of during the break when they get here and get installed. And as far as the electric goes, they'll do the security system, the card readers, And then there was some issues in the science room where we didn't like how they had the switching set up. They had like an old toggle light switches where it's supposed to be more like the technology room where it had a dimmer and control of zones and things. So that was something that they needed to address, and they'll be taking care of that. At the same time, we'll have the opportunity to get out and do a walk through the building to double check the punch list and check off, on our behalf what work has been complete, and then we can officially sign off and close out that item.
Jim, do you think most of these doors are gonna be done Christmas week too?
Yes.
The doors and all the touch-up paint and all that stuff, you're gonna be doing it at night again?
No, well, I think the paint will be an ongoing thing, but they'll try to get most of it done during that break. And the doors will definitely be a priority that they have to take care of during that time when the building is made available.
And the playground was taken care of during break?
Yes,
Those things were removed.
those things were removed.
They're on the
In
side
fact,
of the,
they're on the side of the shed, so Mike has to see if he can put them out to sell. They're ours.
Wow.
Why don't we give them to BBS?
Yeah.
The
Merry
BBS,
Christmas.
we give them to BBS, we didn't want them, we didn't ask for them. Let's give them to BBS, let them sell them.
Sure, we'll put them in our parking lot.
Well, this is, that's what we had.
Give the Dave to put in his front yard. Oh, I love it.
Yes. I think the mechanical contractor, his work is 95% complete. Getting that system up and running, that, as I mentioned, was a big step in the right direction for them. The training went okay today with that new BMS system.
Yes, in fact, we had several of our custodians involved and our consultant, and we're interested in further training. He not only walked the entire building with them, but showed them how to change filters.
Wow.
How to do, the regular kind of maintenance that you have to do. And then Steve Harding was there also for what has to be done on a yearly basis, what you have to bring the company in for. And we have the person's contact information. Should we run into any problems, Mike can demonstrate this to you at the next board meeting if you like, to see how it functions. It's on our computers. We actually, all the administrators can have it. And if someone says their room is too cold, we can see that what the temperature in their room is. And make adjustments.
Awesome.
So who gets to make the adjustments? Administration, individual teachers?
Individual classrooms can make their own adjustments, but like the hallways, we asked him to regulate the hallways, just that nobody can touch it in the hallway and decide to put it up to 8.
Right.
I
Right.
think that's a good idea to do in the classrooms too, if you maintain, if each classroom will mitigate their own heat, you're saying?
Some of the rooms can, some of the rooms can't.
Yeah, so it might be a
I
problem.
think they've talked about locking out the classrooms, but the administrative offices, each individual office, we can regulate our own. But the classrooms, we would have our head custodian or whoever in the building could actually manipulate that periodically, check it through the day and see, oh, that room's a little bit on the cold side, let's move the heat up on it.
Just to regulate the room
Just to
size.
regulate the room, yeah.
What you don't want to do is if I like a comfortable room with 78 degrees, you like a comfortable room with 65 degrees, and we're next door to each other. You have hot and cold coming in conversation
Yeah,
in the hallway.
Yeah.
So we don't want that, so you want to pretty much everything to be regulated.
Right now,
What they can do is, Mike, the suggestion is, once you find out what's required comfortable heat zone, if we decide it's 72 uncomfortable, the 68 uncomfortable throughout the building. If the room's not heating up to 68, then you adjust the thermostat to heat up.
right now, with the exception of a couple of rooms, they're between 68 and 72 degrees,
Right,
all of the other rooms.
right, so there's always, once you get into that ambient temperature, just set it down, whether it's set at 74, to keep it at 72. Because what happens is they're gonna start.
Yeah, because this
thermostats.
system will be able to see what the setting is for the thermostat and what the actual room temperature is.
Right, that's what you wanna do, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all the same throughout the building.
Yeah.
But so you're moving children from room to room, especially, if you go from a cold room to a hot room to a warm room, it sneezes, coughing, and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's why if you can keep it within a range, everybody consistent along the range, you're not gonna have those issues.
What's the status of everything outside? Like, there's that big open space beyond the bus depot. It's just like open, what's gonna happen there? We just gonna drop grass seed there?
In the back where the bus
The
is
back
there,
of the
then all the
clubhouse.
plants were in there, it's like that sort of.
Yeah, it was
open
a staging area for the plants.
Yeah, so
I think they were just gonna put grass seed down and just have grass there.
I think Steve has to check on that.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure.
Is barbed wire standard around the bus depot?
I think so.
Yeah, you don't want nobody climbing over. the
Yeah. Somebody vandalizing those buses, you don't want that. No.
And then with the bocce court is back there, what's
The bocce court is done, Jim? Did it have to have a different surface on it, or that was the surface?
That I'd have to check. I don't know for sure. I saw that it was installed. I didn't know what the inside, I didn't see the inside of it.
There is a surface on it, I'm just not sure whether it's the final surface.
Okay.
Well, wouldn't it replace the surface that was there originally?
It's a new bocce court.
Because the old one out.
Yeah.
Well, the old one. Both of them. But after the handicap,
We have it. It's gonna go into the new playground for the K1.
when we get a punch for that, then.
We've asked John Longo after the holidays to start coming in and working with a committee to design the K1 playground.
We have a budget for it as well, right?
That's coming out of the money that Mike put aside from the grant from the DEC, along with the roof. The only difference is there, we don't have voter approval on it yet.
Right, but we
So
still
we
put
need
it.
voter approval to pull the money out of the reserve
Right,
in order to spend it for the playground. We've already got voter approval to pull the money out for the roof.
right, well, we're gonna put some sort of budget on this thing, or we just gonna. It's
course.
the side limit.
Of course, when we go to the voters with the proposition,
we're
it's
not
gonna have a
asking
dollar
for
amount.
money.
So we've got to get John Longo out here so we can go through the design for that playground and get a cost estimate from him, and then we'll go from there.
No spinning toes.
We had an estimate last year when we were kind of moving in the direction of going out to bid before we needed to, do the voter approval portion of that. So we have an estimate. We'll just have to update that, tailor it to the design of the space if it changes at all, and if the prices have increased since last year.
I feel like it was $350 or something, right? Something, something.
Somewhere around those lines, yes, you're right.
I heard that the playing fields were very wet again. What's going on with the drainage there, and they're being,
Right now they're wet?
Yeah.
Nobody's playing on them. I don't know.
I mean, we know we've had an issue there, so is anybody keeping track
The flood in the back and all
on
that?
what's how the status of those when they get rained? Is there, are they getting waterlogged still, or? I think we got.
I haven't heard anything. I'll check out with Steve O'J.
Okay.
He goes and walks it all the time.
Right.
So,
It says here they're gonna add soil to prevent ponding and reseed areas east of the sanitary leaching. I don't know if that's in the scope of DBS or.
Which
yeah,
contractor
but
is
that's
that?
closer to the baseball field.
Yeah, that's the septic system area, that's not the area that,
I think Barb was talking about the soccer field.
Yeah, the soccer field.
Yeah, the back, we have water was flooded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there wasn't also, you have one issue along the, power line, weren't you, with baseball field?
Yes, the third base side.
Did they take care of that?
I know they were working on something over there. Did they take care of it? I honestly don't know.
I guess it's on the list. Like I said, we just got the list, so I can't.
the list only came this afternoon.
Yeah, I know that, I know, yeah.
Yeah, that's when we got the updates and we just turned it around, looked at it and sent it, but we're gonna verify that that work has been done. I know John is aware of it.
Well, the field's important because if we sleep on it and then we close everything out,
That's
and
when,
then spring comes and we're gonna start wanting to play baseball, it's gonna become a problem.
And there was an issue with the field being kind of brown like a couple months ago, and the next thing you know, it was green again. So is that due to water drying up and regrowing, or is that just from, chemicals being put on it to
No chemicals.
use it up?
There were no chemicals put on
Okay.
it. It's just a matter of them regulating the irrigation system so that it went off more regularly. Because what was happening was it was going on at bad times, so we actually had to turn the water off altogether. So it went for a while with no water at all, that's why it started to drown. But we had to get them to come back out and recalibrate or retime that watering system. And that may be why it's wet again, because it is going off more regularly, and it's not really draining, I don't know.
So we closed out the sprinkler system.
Now it is, it was just
Yeah.
from last week,
Yeah,
it was blown out last week, so there's nothing out, there's no additional water.
but
on
we
it.
did have rain, I know.
So if there's rain and it's pooling there, puddling there, should something be corrected in terms of?
It should be,
Yes.
yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm looking at this list, some of this stuff is, I wish I could get on it, I mean, I'm like, and then I hate to go through this list, but like, it's just the other thing, you have a boys locker room with one of the sinks aren't working?
That's what Jim was just saying, there are some sinks that are not working well.
That should be like a priority.
They were here, I actually saw them with sinks, right, Josh? They were outside your office?
They were here yesterday working on snake.
There's less of them, something was
And Steve
And there's
told
an
me,
issue
Steve
with-
told me they were working on the bathroom sink yesterday, or the locker room sink yesterday too. I don't know if it was completed.
There's
He mentioned that
also,
too.
there's also an issue with something in the boys' locker room. When the hot water, or I don't know, but there's a leak in the pipe in the wall that one of the guys was just telling us about. He says it's not from the heating system, the HVAC system, it's something else and it's on a pipe, you can see it in the wall, they're gonna have to break that wall
we have a
open.
leaky pipe behind the wall?
Yep.
You find out about that, right?
Just found out about it today.
Yeah. And you sent an email to,
Steve Boget is jumping on that.
the guy works for Coffee, right?
Yep,
The other Steve works, I always get the name mixed up.
yeah, Boget works at Park East and Marty works for us. Or for the Bar Center.
okay, so we should probably
We'll talk
go
to
on
Steve about that.
other topics that we
Yeah.
have.
Thank
And
you.
I think everybody probably needs a little time to look over this, and we can always be back in
Yeah,
touch.
we go over that.
Jim, will you be back on the 21st for another update?
December 21st? Yes.
Okay, terrific.
Great. Jim, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, guys. See you on the 21st.
Very good.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Jim.
Good night, have a good night.
Good
night.
Jim.
Yeah, we have rather a number of items on our agenda, so hopefully we can get to quite a few of these. Second on there, we have grading, not of the fields.
A different
you.
type of
Yes.
grading. So just to catch you up a little bit, I was able to find the minutes from our last site-based committee meeting, which took place in 2020, right before everything closed down in March, right, 21. So we had a site-based committee that was made up of Spring School representative teachers, parents, board member. We also had East Hampton, the assistant superintendent, one of the principals, and various other, one of the social workers, and we talked about standards-based grading as opposed to traditional grading. And we kind of started that work and really started to dig in, and then, of course, everything sort of went by the wayside. So we'd like to revisit that. We are right now trying to get together with East Hampton. Everybody's kind of running around and pulled in different directions, but we'd like to continue to work with them because I know they're looking at their grading policies and their grading structures. We're looking at ours, and it's kind of a movement throughout the country. In addition, the Board of Regents is revising graduation requirements, so we want to see what they come out with and sort of dovetail with, what the requirements are going to be and what grading looks like. We
Can you give us a little overview
Sure.
of like standards-based grading versus traditional grading?
So traditional grading are number grades, letter grades A, B, C, D, E, F, or A, B, C, D, F. number grades and a 0 baseline as a failing grade, which is never a good idea because that means when you get a 0, you know, you can never really catch up. It's just not really accurate as to what the child knows and the standards that they master. And
It's just not fair.
it's not fair. It's just not a.
What do you mean when you say 0?
So if you say you get a 0 on a test or you don't do a homework or you don't you get a 0, and that gets averaged in, right?
You're
0
talking
to
about-
50.
Right, so you're talking about someone like misses an assignment.
Oh, yeah, right. But a lot of.
Rarely a student scores 0 on an exam.
Some do.
But you're talking about like a missed assignment that would count towards their overall grade,
Yeah, but-
and it's scored as a 0.
Sure.
And that would pull down their average, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
but there are also, sometimes people do score a 0
Yeah,
on
yeah,
an exam.
So not a 65, not failing, but an
Right.
actual,
We have sort of
Below
a soft
65.
policy
Right.
that it's 65 and below, because that's more fair.
Yeah.
As far as averaging goes. But traditionally, that 0 scale, right, there's a big gap between 0 and 65, and then it's 65, and then, you know, 75, 85, 95. So it just is not an accurate portrayal of what the student really can do. And so New York State and really next gen standards is all about setting an objective or mastering a standard, right? And within that standard, there's a bunch of skills and things to go. And that's where your curriculum comes in. And what everyone is trying to do is just, where are the kids at? What do they need to move forward? And this is all to build toward acceleration and mastery. So if I'm in 3rd grade and one of my standards is knowing, identifying character feelings in fiction books, how does a 70% or an 80% show that they've mastered that standard? Traditional grading is just not as, it's too subjective, number one, and it's just not accurate. It's also unfair to the child that doesn't have the help at home, so they don't turn in assignments, right, because they don't have any support at home. They get that 0. Now they're spending the rest of the year trying to catch up and raise their average. So there's a lot that goes into it. I'm going to send you a nice little article with a nice graphic that shows you the difference between, it's just like a little comparison, and it's really well laid out. But what everybody's moving toward now, considering SEL, and of course now with COVID and lots of loss of instruction, is let's assess on the actual standard and not the performance kind of a thing. Performance comes after mastering the standard.
so would there still be like a report card that goes
Yes.
home? Okay.
Yes.
So instead of getting like an 80 in math, when it's taught, when you're seeing how your child's doing in math, what might someone be saying?
So you might structure your report card to actually have the language of the standards, and it
Okay.
might be a 1 through 4 scale,
Right.
or a 1 through 5 scale, something more like that.
Proficient.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Okay.
we currently, in our K through 5 report cards, we do follow that. We
Right.
do follow that. They still need to be revamped. But our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we do not follow that. And the high school currently doesn't follow that, but they're moving towards that as well. They're moving towards a less traditional scale. And the research that I've done says that a lot of colleges now are accepting standards-based grading and not just these traditional number averages or, again, you know, it's too subjective and it's really just not equitable. So, again, we have a lot more work to do on this. The conversation was started, and I think everybody sort of was learning about. So we will do a nice presentation that really shows everything, but right now we're just exploring. We're in the data collection stages and exploratory stages.
Because when you're working on the grading, they'll be working with what's consistent with the high school,
Yes.
what's consistent with the college requirements
Yes.
as well.
Right, because that's
Not
where it's
just with-
leading to,
Right, yeah.
right? So we don't want to do something that's going to be disjointed from what the high school's doing, and so it'll be a nice sort of alignment. That's the ultimate goal.
If the high school goes in that direction.
If the high school goes in that direction, but I've been assured this year that they're going to take this back up, and again, they were working in their own committees, but they were also joining our committee. So they're still looking at it, and they're still moving toward that.
Can we see how it works on high school level also?
Sure.
So it would be go through, so If you go to the Board of Regents, to go to the whole.
Well, that's a separate piece of it, you know, everything we do is based on New York State Ed and the Board of Regents and the
Right.
decisions that they make. And they have finally come around and
Right.
accepted the fact that this really isn't a modern way of looking at what children know and can do based on these standards. So I think it's a really interesting time and it's a good opportunity for us to have this conversation and also to align with the high school if our kids are gonna end up, you know, there.
You can work with the fees districts as well.
I think we'll start with the high school. You don't want it to be too big, but we're certainly going to find out what they're all doing. I don't even know if they've even started this conversation yet.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's not an overnight thing. It's going to take a couple of years for sure. But again, we have a touchstone text that we're using, which is Dr. Tim Westerberg's standard base grading. And that's the same text that East Hampton High School is using. And I think that we have a really good sort of jump off point. So we'd like to continue that. Amy, you were the person on that committee. I still have you down as being on that committee, so we would love to have you back and working on that with us. Okay, and then,
Just so I'm clear, so this process more emphasizes the actual goal of whatever that standard they want those students to be at and achieve, and less everything else, like, the critique I've heard is like, it de-emphasizes the soft skills, the listening, you know, following the rules.
you mean the
And it's-
traditional or the
the new-
standards-based?
Some of the new push. Has that been something that you've heard?
No, not regarding that. Josh is gonna give you a nice example, but just, what I'm gonna send you, this sums it up for me, anyway. It says, in classrooms that employ standards-based grading, teachers have a better understanding of student mastery, what it looks like, and where students are on the scale. Okay? At any time, they can identify the students at a level, 3, 2, 1, et cetera, so they can offer assignments that are appropriate for that level. This is where you talk more about project-based learning, okay, than traditional, I'm gonna give you a quiz with 10 questions and, 10 answers and an average out of 100. And they can offer assignments that are appropriate. Students at level 1 receive practice and activities to help them reach a level 2, and so on, so it's differentiated. And it sort of mirrors the MTSS model, which is the kids that need the support get the support, and then they keep getting pushed forward until they're ready to take on the grade level work of that standard. The standards set the stage for everything we do in the classroom at different grades. That sets the stage, right? So this really is measuring what it's supposed to, which is, does the kid have proficiency, or the child have proficiency in this particular standard? And if they do, what does that look like? But I'm gonna let Josh give you an example.
I can give a nice example. I'll use an English classroom because that's really comfortable for me, right? But one way I always thought of this style, and this was really important in my classroom as well, but was, so you read a book, right? And what do you do with that book in an English class? A lot of classes would give a test on the book. But what skill does that assess? That assesses retention,
Recall.
very basic, kind of level 1 depth of knowledge sort of skill sets. Your standards, which all planning in a classroom should be based on New York State standards and the next gen standards coming up. If you base your grading on those standards, you can say, okay, well, in standard 12A, Johnny has a score of 3 there, right? So that's somewhere that he is proficient versus, and that could be reading, or that could be listening, or that could be recall, or that could be the ability to analyze a text, or whatever it may be. Versus you say that, okay, so Johnny's good at inferencing on text, but okay, when I look at my vocabulary standards, he's scoring 1s there. It's really low. So then you can actually tailor going back to the MTSS model, you can tailor those interventions to what that student really needs. Versus traditional grading models, I always found like, yeah, okay, I know that they might know what happened in the book, or they might know a particular, fact recall of a point in time in history, but how does that really translate for me understanding how skilled that particular student is in that, and what I really need them to know, if that makes sense.
So you might not know why they scored that grade. Why did they get an 80? What were they failing in comprehension, or is it vocabulary? Whereas
Correct.
with the standards,
This teases
It also-
out where the real need
It can
is.
also expose flaws in assessment, right? Because if I've been using the same assessment for a long time, then who knows what that's really assessing, right?
So what I'm hearing is that the ultimate, most important thing is what do you get from your assessment? What knowledge as it, for the students understanding and also for the teacher understanding, because in order to do that, you have to be able to diagnose where the student is. First thing is really important. You got to know where they are. And every student may be at a different place, or there may be a group that are in the same place, and this group over here is a different place. And then my understanding is then teachers can better prescribe what kids need to know or understand. So if you're diagnosing and then prescribing correctly, then your assessment's going to reflect that. And if the assessment is the standards, if you diagnose correctly and you prescribe correctly, they'll be able to master the assessment, which is the standards.
And that's great verbiage for it too, I think, right? And that's a good way to look at it, is that we need to find out where exactly kids are weak and where kids are strong, right? Where's the
That's the
deficiency and where's the
diagnostic
strength? So you need that diagnostic piece there, and then the standard-based grading allows you to say, okay, well, I know I really need to focus on this for this particular student, and you can differentiate for that student as you need it.
And sometimes your prescription's not so good,
That might be true
but your
too.
assessment
And
will
then that's
tell
a
you that.
reflection on
Right,
the teaching
on the
itself.
teacher, not the student. So
Absolutely.
then the teacher will discover if they have an assessment and they don't master that, show mastery, and the majority of them don't show mastery, then you have to go back and look at, okay, what did I really do to prescribe for these kids who I identified as being weak in these areas or strong in these areas. Sometimes you don't even have to teach some of the standards because your assessment or your diagnostic part tells you that they've all mastered it.
They're in good shape, yeah.
And in a traditional classroom, teachers are spinning the wheels a lot by reteaching things that most of their class already knows. Therefore, kids get bored, and then they start acting out, all those things.
But what I found too, like working with curriculum maps in the past and applying standards to curriculum maps, was there's so much overlap between grade levels. And in the standards there is as well, you want to reteach that sort of thing, but on the higher levels, the classes were almost the same class year after year. So how are you really assessing, like where are you showing progression throughout your years in school? And I think this is going to be especially both challenging and rewarding on the junior high level, where they do not have a standards-based structure already. They're in a traditional grading model, and that's hard to break away from. But I think that there's probably a middle ground there as well.
Well, how do you show growth over time if you're based on, if I'm a 90 student, I'm always a 90 student.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I see, what's the growth? Because I'm always performing at that level. If I'm a 50 student who's always making 65s, then that tells you something about maybe how you're delivering the instruction. So it really is a shift for a lot of teachers and a lot of parents.
It would be, yeah.
But at the same time, if it's done right, the right way, it really shows growth over time. And that's really what we want to see.
And as Christine said, it is a process, right? It will take time to make that shift. And then Christine also brought up a great point about like project-based learning. That in and of itself is far more complicated than just assigning projects. So, but it does lend itself as well to that style of assessment.
Yeah, I think gone are the days of reading, writing, arithmetic. It's like, you go to the doctor, you end up going to 5 different specialists so they can tease out what it is that's really going on with you, and then they can prescribe, to use your words, what it is you need, right? The anecdote, so that you can get better. Well, that's exactly what this is. It's the same model. It's just that it is a paradigm shift for teachers and for parents and for kids, but the kids aren't worried, well, how many points, or what's my grade, or what's my average? They're taking more responsibility for their learning and their mastery of certain things, because that becomes the focus, and not just the grade, or the points, or the average, or the, and it's a huge shift. But there's tons of research on it, and there's many schools across the country that have embraced
And
it.
if you look at AP models, College Board models are already based on this, with how they score those courses. So
So, I mean, if this is the direction that we go, then, I mean, what do? Do you hold classes, training to get teachers on
Oh, yeah.
board with what the
Yeah.
expectation is, or what the new grading system is gonna be, or?
There's a whole process that takes place. We're in the very, very, very initial stages of it. We're just learning about all of this, okay? So I think that, yes, if there's gotta be buy-in, and people have to truly understand what it is that they're trying to achieve. And that's exactly what will happen. So once again, we go back to all roads lead back to professional development, right? And time and resources, but it's true. It's also so nice for the teachers. It makes them better teachers. It makes the work more meaningful. And the students and the teachers are partnered in trying to master these things together. So,
Well, you already have staff that know how to do
oh,
this, and
absolutely.
they're
Yeah, we're not
doing it.
starting from scratch. But, right, we absolutely already have staff members. We have amazing staff members that have a lot of background knowledge. It was probably called something else years ago, right?
Yeah, we're not
Rebranded.
reinventing it.
Yeah, we're not reinventing the wheel, but it takes work. It's roll up your sleeves kind of work.
And I have to say too, in my time at spring school, like that's one thing I've noticed here over and over and over again, is that when we look at new initiatives, we look at, I started talking about restorative justice models in the summer, or we look at standards-based grading, a lot of this work is already being done here.
Yeah.
A lot of it already exists, right? So it's just a matter of kind of moving.
Well, Teachers College was based on a lot of that philosophy anyway, and that was here for a long time as far as, the literacy-based instruction that was taking place. Because they just weren't giving letter grades, you had to assess kids on the level they were
Yes,
readers,
absolutely.
Yes.
and all that is standard-based. So it's been here for a long time. It's just, and I think the focus at the middle school level is probably, you're right about that. Because that's where traditionally it's been based on what the high school model was and the bell curve. And as you know, once you find a place on the bell curve, you don't really move very much.
Yeah.
And this goes against that totally, because it's not putting kids on a bell curve. It's really identifying where they are and then seeing how they grow. And I don't care who you are, what student you are going to grow in ways if you're doing effective instruction. You're going to grow.
Agreed.
So if you're placed on a bell curve, though, then traditionally in the past, if you're an average kid, you'll always be an average kid. If you're above average kid, but again, there are exceptions to that. But I think that's what this is all fighting against, is really putting kids in a box and just keeping them there.
Labels.
Labels.
Where are we with, knowing where our kids are? Because I know, a lot of kids didn't test, we've had obviously a crazy year and a half, 2 years here. So,
I
to
think
Tim's
we're,
point, with all this conversation about grading, I know at the beginning of 2022, about the high school standards, they're gonna be doing a lot of discussing about what it's gonna be for high school graduation. That's all, a lot of those
Yeah, that'll be really interesting.
conferences are gonna start happening in 2022. So this is a long process, but I feel like circling back to knowing where our kids are, the last time as a board, I had a presentation, it was when Jay was the superintendent, and I think Eric did the presentation. So that would be really good, and maybe it's not the time after everything we're going through right now, but I think kind of understanding where our kids are is really important for the next conversation
Agreed.
about the grading.
Agreed. I mean, we do have the New York State test space. The debate is, what were they good for last year, right? And then we didn't have them before that for a while. But I have to say, consistently, our school does very well on the state tests, even with the challenges that we have.
I think you have to go back to to the professional staff you have here. And I think even though there hasn't been that formalized assessment,
Yeah,
the way they assess kids hasn't changed that much.
No.
And so I think they, even though we've gone through all this turmoil, I think they probably have just as good as understanding as anybody does about how our students have grown over time. And so that discussion, I think you do have those discussions with grade level teams. That's where you can really get an understanding of where kids are, is by having them talk about where they see their kids.
oh, sure, the teachers here are master diagnosticians. I mean, from Fountas and Canal to, literally to Star, Renaissance. I mean, but they're really in there with, again, it's a partnership, right, between the students and the teachers. And the teachers here, especially our veteran teachers, are excellent at knowing where the kids are at. More so than a state test could ever tell you.
Yeah.
But I will say overall, I think because the teachers know so well where the kids are at and they're able to give this intentional instruction to, move them forward, that's why we tend to do well overall on state tests, because it's all supposed to kind of feed into that. State tests are based on standards, mastery of the standards, again. So I think, but Tim's absolutely right. We're not starting from scratch. I think that I know the summer planning and the summer collaboration was huge for teachers so that they could start right out of the gate in assessing the kids and knowing where they're at. And now they're putting all of that to work with the kids in the classrooms. They're constantly taking the temperature of where the kids are at, constantly.
Yeah, and I can say too, like I was so impressed when I first came to spring school by our math staff, math AIS staff, and I mean all of our teachers, but those specialists in particular, literacy staff, that they collect so much data at the start of the year, and I'd never seen anything like that. And I was very, very impressed by that. So that data is there. We have that data. That's something that could be, kind of boiled down for everyone. And we did kind of look at the state test from last year. Obviously, we looked at that, but it's kind of like, I don't know what that means per se.
I was actually impressed when I saw.
Well, yeah, I mean, overall, the kids who took the test did very well.
I actually looked and I compared us to like other districts.
I did the same thing. We did
And
very
I
well.
was
like
just
10%
I was like really surprised,
yeah.
not surprised, but I was like happy.
Yeah, we were 10 percentage points higher in a lot of categories, and we did very well.
I think you had a higher percentage of our children here who had access online and participated online than other school districts.
Yeah,
true.
At least from, I left at the start of this, but it was difficult at first, but I think those districts that really provided that kind of feedback and they were like relentless in making sure that all kids had access to the technology and then were participating, all did better than those districts that struggled with that.
Mhm. And that's an equity issue,
Yeah.
right? So, we're moving ahead here, and we want, we're really hoping that East Hampton and we'll be able to really do this together because it's time.
Now, can I ask you a question? Now that we've finished like first quarter,
Yes.
do you guys kind of look at that in general? Do you think we're at a place where we have some kids that are pretty low that we need to look for additional staffing because a lot of it can't be given in the classroom?
I don't think
No.
it requires additional staffing, quite frankly, at this point. I think what we're seeing is a little bit of inconsistency. But again, and I'm going to go to Tim's point, the kids that have been consistent in their instruction have fared very well. They are doing really well. I have teachers, I just had a conversation with a first grade teacher today, she's like, my 6-year-olds, they're all reading, like they're all doing great. But those particular children were all tuned in during COVID. They were in front of their teachers, they were here, they were back, and we came back. There are some inconsistencies, and I think if anything, where we fall down a little bit is the newer kids coming in from different Spanish-speaking countries. that don't have the background of language. And so I know we're doing the early morning program, and we have a fantastic ENL department, and eventually they will catch up, at least to their abilities. But right now, we're seeing a little bit of a dip with our ENL students. Because that makes sense, right? I mean, they haven't had the same instruction
There's
and,
been broken education.
yeah. And again, they're being diagnosed, hopefully in a way that will give them the right anecdote that they need to go forward. And they're enthusiastic about learning, and they're supported and they're nurtured, and all the soft skills are being taken care of. But it is.
We're not overstaffed. I mean,
No, I don't think.
Not in that area, I mean, in fact, I think if anything, we'll probably have more support for that group of students. Second
Yeah,
language
I just think the
learners.
nature of the needs there are more obvious. But, I mean, our little guys, they're reading, and again, that doesn't mean there aren't needs. If anything, it's been more behavioral needs across the board, across the grade levels. That was kind of a shocker coming into the school year. It was sort of like everybody needed to just be re-socialized, and for the littlest
But it sounds
guys.
like that's just not here.
No, it's
That's
across the
everywhere.
board, it's
Across the board,
everywhere.
yes.
I went to a conference in Albany, and everybody from upstate was saying the same thing, and everything that comes across our feeds is all about that. I finally feel like things are starting to balance out now. Do you feel that way too, Josh?
Yeah, it's getting better.
It's getting better,
So
consistently
now, how
better.
many of your little things have you held for the after-school behavioral thing?
Oh, okay, so that's been going for 2 weeks now, and we've held 3.
And you already can see somewhat of a change?
8 students.
So we've had 9 students now go through the program. And these were some of them went through for multiple days, some of them went through for 1 day. And those students, I have all their reflective writings, I have their action plans and everything they've done as a result of that, and they've actually followed through with it. So, and they left the program, it's the funny thing, they left the program really excited to execute that action plan. And that was
That's what they need, positive
it is,
reinforcement.
and that's the end goal.
That is really key.
With those staff members running the program, Mr. Biggs and Ms. Cook are amazing at that. And that was the one thing that we all sat down together and collaborated to figure out, we want them to leave that program feeling okay, I made a mistake. How do I rectify that? And I feel good about what the decisions I'm making now. And, the big group of young men that we had go in there left really excited to make things better. And they went in the next day and they directly executed their plan. So
there'll be some retraining for some of them.
I'm sure there will.
Of course.
I am 100% positive there will be. Yeah,
All those
it is middle school. So,
Exactly.
But also word gets around
Yeah.
too, and they all know what goes on, so they're they tread carefully now, but then again, they're getting the attention that they might not be getting in other places.
And I think too, the coupling of consequence with positive adult interaction is a really nice model. So
Yeah.
it's working well.
We're actually hoping to maybe extend it, as we have had some issues come up in 5th grade. Right now it's 6th, 7th, and 8th, but we're gonna maybe come to you with that at the next work session, if there's a need to extend it to 5th grade.
I just want to ask you about homework. It seems like this year, it's, at least with my 7th grader, not having a whole lot
Yeah.
when he comes home, and I certainly appreciate it, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Give me just some feedback on the homework and kind of going forward, and maybe how that is not tied to grading, and where it might be relevant going forward in the future, or if it seems like something that we're gonna completely kind of slowly do away with.
I don't know if we have that figured out yet, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I think it's something that we're absolutely gonna discuss with the grading. I don't think homework and grading should be connected. I don't. I mean, homework is meant to be practiced, right?
Yeah.
We didn't want to stress anybody out more than they've already been stressed out. And again, if you have quality instruction happening during the day, you don't need all that afterwards, I think what we wanted to do was connect the kids to the school, to the extracurriculars, to each other. That reconnection is really important to us this year. So having the time spent playing sports or, doing it the after-school play or whatever it is instead of homework is helpful to the families and the kids. I would like to still continue in that direction, but I'm not the only person, and I'd like to kind of get the opinions of everybody. Because I don't think, the research shows that homework really doesn't make a huge difference as far as student achievement.
Yeah,
And-
it's like, homework is useful in the sense where a child's practicing.
Yeah, it's like taking a
Yeah,
music
but I
class.
mean, practice can be 5 math problems, not 20.
That's exactly right.
No, but my whole thing is like, I agree with you, I think like, they should practice, but when they come to school with that work, let's say we go back to homework at some point,
Yeah,
I don't think that work should be judged and used against them towards their grading.
and there we go back to standards-based grading.
Yeah.
Because if that child gets a 0 for homework, right, and now we have a problem. Again, it shouldn't really be connected
Well,
to achievement.
You know, you still have people to convince. And-
I know.
And they're really, it's like anything that you have a mindset, because their mindset is, well, that's a consequence for this kid. And if I don't have a consequence like that where it causes pain, then things aren't going to change. And I think you have to continually work hard to change that mindset because it's a tough one. And I know I experienced that a lot as a principal, is changing that mindset because their arguments to them make complete sense and they have some experience of working with kids, but they're forgetting the kids that completely drop out of the picture because they dig a hole so deep for themselves because of whatever reason they can never get out of it. And so I think it's definitely it goes along with the discussion about grading, it goes along with the discussion about social and emotional well-being of students and creating better mindsets for them instead of thinking that if I don't do something, I'm going to be punished for it instead of get consequences.
And I think as a district, that's it. You make a decision. Are you going to come at it from support or punitive, right?
Right.
And so I think
Right.
we've all all of us in our different roles and responsibilities are kind of in agreement that we would like to do the support and the positive reinforcement
Absolutely.
and the engagement and keeping kids excited about learning. If kids are excited about what they're learning, there's no reason for all the negative stuff. And it's hard to get there. And it's not the traditional model, but I'm willing to give it a try.
We are going to be taking questions on each topic as we go along, so if anybody has a question on LTV about grading and this, you could feel free to call in at this time. We do have quite a number of other topics to get on with here, so we'll see what we can get through. So that sounds like a very exciting, thing that you're looking into with the grading. It'd be great to see how that progresses.
Thank you.
Yeah, and obviously, the high school, seeing
Yeah,
with the high school, and I think we don't want to put our kids at a disadvantage as they move
That's right.
on to ninth grade. to high
Or
school.
an advantage. Depends on how you come at it.
Spirit meet.
This will be quicker. All right. So we're hoping to bring back Spirit Meet for so many reasons, a lot of which we just touched upon, but we have 2 staff members that are willing to co-coordinate Spirit Meet and do it in a safe manner. We're hoping to have it in the new gym, which holds, the capacity is 385. We want to do alternating Mondays and break it up K through 2. So Monday K through 2, and then the following Monday would be 3 through 5. That would be no more than about 227. And then with staff members, 247, something like that, and that is the lower grades, that's if they have a higher number. It's less than 3 through 5, and we would again go back to the awards based on character ed, announcements, and we would not at this time invite parents or the general public, it would be closed, but we would have it filmed, and we would give some 5th graders a leadership position in filming, and then we would post that to the website every week so the parents could watch it or whoever wants to watch it and feel, connected to it. So we're hoping that that's something that, you would support. And we're really excited, and the kids will be thrilled.
So when are you gonna start that, like after?
After the holidays,
Christmas break?
yeah, the first week back from
Are
break.
you gonna do it the first week? or you
Yeah.
gonna wait a week?
Maybe wait a week.
Yeah, we'll wait a week, I guess.
You know,
Megan Kelly, our music teacher, and Megan Payne, one of our special ed teachers, are willing to take this and spearhead this, and then there'll be one other presenter that would be helping out at the 3 through 5 level.
Are you gonna be working, have a social curriculum, working with the social
Excuse me,
emotional
board,
welfare?
we do have a caller on the line.
oh, great. Okay. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and put them through, and we'll come back to Spirit Meet.
Okay,
What do
great.
you want?
I was gonna, no, it's fine.
What to call for?
Yeah, caller 7333, you're on the air.
Hi guys, this
Okay.
is Monique Sullivan. How are you?
Hi,
Money.
Money.
Hi. I just wanted to call in and just kind of give a little bit of a perspective too on the homework situation, or the homework conversation, as far as like the younger grades. Because I just want to make sure too that when we do have those conversations that we're taking into account that what might work for like the older kids, it's a little different for the younger kids. So as a second grade teacher, but also as a parent of a first grader and a second grader, we've been doing homework optional in second grade, and I've really just enjoyed getting back into a routine with my kids. And it gives like an opportunity for the little guys, for us parents to sit down and really know what they're learning in school. A lot of times it's hard to get out of them exactly what they're doing, and so seeing physical work in front of me helps me as a parent to really kind of engage with them, what they're doing throughout the day. And it's nice that it's optional, because it's, you know, if you have a busy day and you can't get to something, you don't have to. But if I can kind of keep that routine going and we don't have sports that evening, it's just something that's nice for the little guy. So just something to think about too when we do have the conversation of homework, that across the board it might not be a one-size-fits-all solution.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thanks,
calling
Monique.
in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, baby, you know, you can try to build in the social emotional aspect of Spirit Week.
So there'll be a character and theme, and the awards will be based on the students who are exhibiting characteristics of that theme, whether it's respect or empathy or civics, right? This is a way to pull in civics. So it hasn't been fleshed out yet because the coordinators will do that, but we also have a character ed coordinator who will work with the Spirit Week coordinators and make sure that, yes, that we're hitting all
What
of
about,
those.
sometimes, you know, like, we brought a special guest to do a Spirit Week, like we brought the wrestler in, and
Yes, that's character ed. We have a separate character ed coordinator that already has those things planned out, or she's working on them. That's Crystal Reiner, Mrs. Reiner.
I was just wondering, like, it'd be great if you do it K to 2,
Yeah,
you could target the K to 2 only.
Yeah.
And then you get 3 to 5, so all the good, you target that way, and you go to the high, the middle school. You target them specifically for that age group.
and
Versus a broad, in the past, we've always brought in one speaker, K to 8. And it doesn't, you know, with the same speaker, kindergarten, 8th grade. And the younger kids might not pick up on that, was the older kids say this isn't for me, and they fade off.
well, that's been a benefit, actually, of the whole social distancing thing.
Yeah, that's,
It has, because we essentially run 3 different schools here.
Right.
We have a primary school, middle grades, and then we have a junior high. And it has sort of helped us pinpoint the needs and tailor our assemblies or whatever it's going to be, our instruction to them. So yes, that will be considered for sure.
So starting maybe a week.
Yeah, so second week in January?
Second week. Okay, if
3 to 5
anybody
days.
wants to call in with a question about Spirit Meet, we'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, not having classes.
Transportation. Stop finder.
Yes, so the board had asked me to inquire about communication with parents regarding our buses. So currently we have a system called Blackboard Connect, but it does require you to be
connected to the internet. It doesn't work very good from our phones. So if a high school run is late due to a broken down bus or a bus driver calling in sick at 5 a.m., we can't get that message out fast enough to high school students, okay? So someone suggested, one of the parents actually suggested this bus finder where there's a GPS on the bus and a parent downloads an app and is actually able to see the bus coming up the block, okay? Or if you've ever taken an Uber or a Lyft, it works that way, it tells you. You need good cell service to begin with, okay? And you still need the bus that is actually the bus that you're waiting for to be the bus that the kids are arriving in. So for example, if one bus breaks down and that's Route 1, but she jumps on a bus that's in the driveway, that's not going to be Route 1. It goes by the bus and the GPS on the bus. So we researched it, we attached it to your agenda. We would, if we were to consider this, we would go with the same company that runs our schedules right now for our bus, TransFinder. They have something called Bus Stock Finder, they call it. Initial cost for the first year would be about $18,000. There's no cost to the parents to download an app. And then every year after that, it's about $7,500.
The whole security thing just scares the heck out of me. The whole security thing just scares the heck out of me. Because if you have a broken family, and you both have the app, you could track your child where it's going. And the school, you know what it is going to be, what parent that the child and the child. We don't know. We don't.
Well, I just think, I think it's too expensive anyway.
It's going to cost.
I think it's something.
If somebody is physically at a desk, which normally Josh and I are in by like 7 o'clock, Marion calls us on the radio almost every morning, right, Josh?
Yeah.
We can get a Connect Ed message out. For high school students, you know, you need to be aware of what time your bus comes. We're saying 5 minutes before. Call a friend. Did the bus come yet? You know, did I miss it? Because it's possible that you did miss it because you weren't out there on time.
Our buses shouldn't be coming early.
No, they don't come early, but there are sometimes high school kids are not out there when they say they were out there. You know, the bus drivers know when they've been late. And one bus driver is adamant that I'm never late. I was there on time, you know.
That's funny, I go 3 Mile home every morning at, well, there's these Hampton so I get it 10 to 8. And it's amazing when I get behind these buses that 6 or 7 kids are in a house still. Then they all come out, then they go to, these Hampton toys, but they have like door-to-door service. So then they go to the next house, those kids come out of the house. You know, so each bus is held up 8 minutes, each stop. You know, so we can't blame it on the bus driver.
No, the bus drivers are not.
The parents got to be outside. And how many of our high school students actually take the bus?
It depends. It really depends. No, but I can get that for you. They're required to take attendance. So I can get you the attendance on all the routes.
I know it's about to supply a bus, whether they take it or not, I know that.
Yeah.
I just think you deal with it the way you've been dealing with it. I mean, I haven't heard that many. You can
I
make
think there's,
complaints.
some parental frustration because of all the shortage of drivers and things happening like that, and unfortunately it's happening everywhere.
But there's no guarantee if you put something in force like that, spend all the money for it, that people would use it. I mean,
Right, and how many people are
And
going to have
what's it
service
gonna,
for it?
what's it gonna solve? The bus is not coming because we don't have a bus driver, simple as that. So now you're telling the bus is gonna be 8:05 and it's not here, and it's 8:15, why is it not here? Oh, well, the bus driver didn't show up, or we had the bus got late in traffic, or whatever. All those phone calls become,
And I don't recommend putting on a clerical for just that function at 6 a.m. in the morning. To me, it's a waste of much needed energy.
I'd rather see the money going back to the grading situation, or evaluate each student for grading. If we're gonna hire additional staff for that, I'd rather put money for that.
Well, we might have a tough budget season coming up this year anyway, so.
Right.
I just think it's something that, we appreciate you looking into it.
Yeah,
but
it's a good idea.
I think we just continue with what.
It's good, they know, what I'm looking at, it's really.
I just wanted you to have the information and, you know. Mike,
Grants. The last time you talked about what is the status of the grants, I printed out off of the state's website, which is all public information. This is a summary of the current grants, the status of the current grants, and everybody have one?
yeah,
So this is for this year?
This is the current year, and you've got two different blocks of grants on
Mike, was this on the website or?
the
Yes.
website.
this is public.
It's public
When was it
information.
on the website? I mean, all this, when was it on the website?
I downloaded this today.
Monday, 12/6.
Yeah, I think it's great, but I would love to have this earlier to look at.
Okay.
Okay, like before the meeting, so I could spend some time with it looking at it. But anyway, just an idea.
We were
The main
hoping
reason I
it
wanted-
would change.
What I wanted to do is really point out, there's three items here. There are two that you see that say under review, those are grants, Title II and Title IV. They're reviewing it still. They haven't granted, they haven't come up with the number, the budget. And then when you go down, you see the ARP ESSER 3 grant for $1,458,000. It has a pay-to-date number of 0. That's in the state controller's office, still being evaluated.
Okay, right.
So we haven't gotten the approval yet, we haven't gotten the final. All the other ones represent the 20% initial funding that you get when they first approve the grant. So we've got two different groups for the current year, the 22 year, and some still from last year, they're still working on, they're processing the FS10F, so they haven't finalized that portion of it as well.
So, 3 million,
I got a minute, I got
there's 3.2, what is that?
$3,220,000 is the total budget for all of the grants that you see on that page.
Right?
Start from the top, that's the
And how
total
much of
budget.
this is related to us?
These are grants earmarked to spring school.
So,
So for
what
2020.
percent, what's 20%, 20% is,
All right, if you go, start with the very first one, Title I, Part A, it's project number 0021223055. The budget is $401,583. So 20% of that is
okay, yeah, so
$80,316.
it's that column.
So that column is the amount that they paid us to date.
Okay, so our budget,
Our grant, basically, it's not budget, it's grant.
It's the grant money.
It's the grant money,
It's the
but-
state's budget for grants allocated.
We
to
grant
schools.
money plus.
we took all of this into our budget.
No, it's not in our general fund budget. You gotta be careful. These are the special aid fund budgets. Each grant is an individual project in the special aid fund. And a lot of these help support expenses that we don't have to pay in the general fund, so we can pull them over into the special aid fund. But I can't do that until I get the approvals.
So do we have to account for the things we want to spend them on in the general fund?
For now, until we get the approval, yes.
Is there anything on here that you're concerned about? Any red flags?
Not right now, I'm just waiting, I think we're gonna get, any day now, I'm gonna see that ESSER 3 money. I was worried about that a few weeks ago, because there was no movement on it, and all of a sudden it went up into under review, and then it went through the review process fairly quickly, and it's now at the controller's office.
You're saying for us to get 20%.
And what is the SF3, Mike?
That's the COVID relief grant that we were talking about last year. We were using some of that
COVID?
money to help balance the budget last year to get to 1.5 or whatever it was.
That was one-time expense, you're not gonna see that replicated.
Right, so when we get to 20%, when do we get the other 80?
Well, all of these grants, you have to spend the money first, report to the state, and then they'll reimburse it.
And this was for last year?
Some of it's last year, some of it's this year.
So out of the 1.4 million, we close to, it doesn't go to the state?
This 1.4 million grant, like I said, controller hasn't approved it yet, so I'm waiting, if we get to 20%, we're gonna get,
But we have to
Almost
pay those
300,000.
expenses already. it sounds
we'll
like.
have, and we already have a lot of those
We made those
expenses,
expenses
So how,
already.
how many expenses earmarked towards that
A million.
particular grant have we made?
about 1,950,000.
And that full amount has been submitted as,
No, no,
No,
we're
it's
waiting for
not
it.
approved.
Can't submit it. This is only, the actual grant request has been submitted. So we're waiting to get the approval before we can actually spend the money.
okay, so it just sounded like that you had already spent, you said $1 million something.
I have, right, we have all of those salaries, all of those supplies, all in the general fund right now,
Right,
waiting for this to be approved, then I can do a transfer into this grant, and then we can start looking at, once we fully spend the remaining 1.4 million, I file the final cost report to get the reimbursement.
okay, but they're gonna reimburse us like for 20% of that for starters, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
they give you an advance, they call it an advance.
Once they approve it. But,
Yeah.
what, so how long?
You said salaries.
There are some salaries in there, yeah.
Remember.
That's normal, we do that with a lot of the grants, well, not a lot, with some of the grants, we also have salaries in those.
Usually grants are reimbursed by the state. You actually pay
Reading,
the money.
yeah.
You pay the money up front and then they reimburse.
E&L programs, all those kinds of things.
Mike, but to under review, what does that mean?
That means the program office at the grants department in the state, they're reviewing all of the narratives, like them, or whoever wrote that particular grant. They have to fill out a whole narrative form that says, I want to spend X dollars here and here's why. So they're trying to come up with all the justifications as to why we want that money. And then they're going to determine whether or not it fits into their program.
So should we counter that money before we have it? Because this is just,
We don't normally spend the money until we have it. This ESSA was special money related to COVID. Districts had spent a lot of money on ventilation systems, on cleaning supplies. So this was their way of reimbursing us.
And this ESSER 3, I also put in there the softball fields, to redo those ball fields, to skin the infields and upgrade the.
Did that go under COVID?
Yes,
It goes
because
under that grant, it fits under that grant. yeah.
outdoor education, districts have built pavilions, greenhouses, because they want to get the kids outside for education. This is a very small amount, Spring Scott. There are districts that are looking at $14 million.
Is it based on your capital budget?
It's based on, not your capital budget, it's based on your overall size and your combined wealth ratio. So we get a lower amount just based on the combined wealth ratio.
So
So,
a lot of permanent expenses.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Permanent expenses in these grants and ESSER.
Not on the COVID relief grants, it's supposed to be one-time help for different things.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, like, we had one last year, I don't even know, no, because we already.
We've added teachers since COVID. We've added E&L, we've added math, we've added reading because of the need.
Right, but that's gonna be the tough pill to get swallowed.
Correct.
So,
And some of it started off by helping to reimburse us for some of the expenses when the pandemic first hit. We had people sitting at home
Yes.
getting paid. So rather than put the burden on the taxpayers, the federal government, the state came up with these different versions of the COVID relief grants to help reimburse us and make us whole. Hasn't been 100%, but
No.
it's been pretty, at least 50%.
And you did a very good job, Mike, of keeping track of those expenses so that when these grants became available, we knew what we could charge to them.
Mike, on here it says, went on to the open products, 2021. We have a start date of September 20, and then date of August 31st, 21.
The grant years on a lot of these grants, like the title grants and the 611 grants, they're on a different fiscal year than our school year. So they go from September 1st typically to August 31st.
Okay, so that's when the grant went out, and the end date that the grant was.
Right. Some of the pandemic relief grants, like, you see the bottom one, CRRSA ESSER 2, goes from March 13th, 2020 to September 30th, 23. Well, the ESSER 3 grant also goes out to 23. I don't remember what the start date on that one was.
That was this July.
Yeah. So some of them span more than just 1 year, with the idea that you're not gonna be able to spend it all in 1 year and to allocate it over a couple of years to kind of wean yourself away from the reliance on.
So it's a one-time grant, but not necessarily a one-year grant.
Correct.
Correct.
But if they end on 8/31, you gotta spend the money before then or before that?
I have to spend the money within that time frame.
So
So
like,
when I submit my final cost report, I've got a list. Everything we spent, the check number, the date it was for, all of that stuff, and those dates have to be between those dates.
well, yeah, okay. I knew I've submitted them yet then.
A lot of, most of those I have. They're
Yeah.
just-
They're in review.
You have a wide criteria, but, I mean, it's not like you're gonna have to go look for,
No.
submit anything related to materials, supplies, whatever.
Right.
They're wide open.
Yeah, they're pretty detailed though.
They are very detailed,
But
they are
it gives you a
scrutinized.
lot of areas.
They give you a lot of leeway though.
But just, I'm just trying to understand, so I understand, so that's my thing. So, let's just take the first one, Mike, 158,000, and then you explain it real quick. Out of 158,000, they give us $39,536, right?
Right? That was the advance.
That was the advance. It started on September of 20, right?
Mhm.
And it ended on August 31st of 21,
Right,
which was 4 months ago.
4 months ago.
He said,
They've been submitted, they're in process of being reviewed. The
Right.
problem up in Albany is the grants finance people, they're not working in the office. They're working predominantly remotely. So like today, I had to call one of them for a question on one of these other grants. Actually, it's the UPK. We always get 62,100. This year, for some reason, they're showing us at 61,200, $900 short. I think they transposed the number, so I had to leave a message, and they tell you right off the bat, we're not working in the office, and it may take 3 to 4 days before anybody can get back
Time
to
to
you.
call, so it might take 3 to 4 months before you get the money.
And then it's the same thing with them processing for the payment, because it goes through the grants office, they review it, they okay it, they send it to the controller reviews it, and then schedules it to be paid. So the other thing is the controller's looking at it at his end, whether or not he's got the cash flow today to pay these grants. So even though he may be okay with principally that we're due that money, he's not gonna release the money until he has money in his coffers.
So, here's a weird question. If we have a whole, well, a lot of $3.2 million, right?
Mhm.
We don't have that in our reserve fund. We don't have that in our fund, right?
No, we don't.
And we're supposed to spend that money before we get the money.
Theoretically, that's what they're
Right.
saying, yes.
So, and we don't know when we'll get the money back.
Right.
Do you have a cap on how much you can spend within our reserve fund? So out of 3.2 million, you might want to spend 900,000.
Well, what I'm gonna start doing now in January after the holidays, I'm gonna start looking at some of these grants and saying, can I make a partial request, a second advance request based on what we've already spent and get that money in to help us just keep it rolling?
Well, that's what my question was. The first question I started pending, waiting for the money to come in. It was back in August, now December. We only got 20% of $156,000, only getting that. We spent the money. When do they forecast giving us the full
They're
reimbursement?
not giving us any answers on that.
Right, so it puts us in a tough nut,
It does put us in a tough nut.
because you can't spend $3.2 million and wait 8 months to a year to get it, you don't have the reserve fund to cover it.
Right.
Other larger school districts have a 4% reserve fund.
We're in New York State.
Does it?
We're in New York State.
Right, but I know we're in New York State, so I don't want.
His hands are tied, basically.
No, I know it's at the time, for the district, our hands are tied on spending what we want to spend.
Well, but you gotta have the faith that, because if you didn't go after these grants.
No, you have to go to the grant, I understand that. So I'm saying, our year was a year, right? Our budget was a year, fiscal thing, right? Annual budget.
Well, it is, yeah.
So we only have like $1 million in reserve, right?
Yeah, we've got a little over about $1.3 million in the,
So what happens if I spend $2 million on this grant, because we don't get the grant money, I might not get the grant money till July 1st next year. That's a new budget. What do we do?
Well, I mean, I would say only half of that is for right now, because this other one, these two, prior ones on the bottom here, we have through September of '23, so we're not using all that money. It's like,
So we already did though, we already spent $1 million already.
no, we haven't spent everything from the ESSER 3 and ESSER 2.
right, we haven't spent anything on those grants until we get the final approval. Then we open it up and we can start
I thought
issuing
you
purchase
just showed
orders.
us close to $1 million.
I think you're never gonna get ahead of yourself that far, so that you're gonna run the
That's what
trouble.
I'm afraid of. That's what-
Well, but that's what Mike's doing, he's trying to
Yeah.
I'm
gradually.
juggling, I'm trying to do a lot of juggling to keep
Yeah.
things moving in the right direction. I understand your point, $3.2 million is a big nut if it all comes that, you know, we have to spend it right away and we don't have the money to spend it today. But that's not what's gonna happen, it's gonna be spent prorated over the course of a year or a year and a half.
Well, some of them already.
I mean, some of them are
Yeah.
finishing in '22, others in '23, so I don't think, we're not having to spend all that money right now in order to get it.
Right.
Does ESSER 3 have an end date?
ESSER 3 does have an end date, I don't recall what it is, they haven't published it here yet. I just don't recall what it is, but when that number goes from 0 to, right, you'll see a start and an end date.
When you present the budget for next year in the spring, are you gonna include all the new positions that we created over the last year?
They were in last year's budget too.
Yeah.
Every position was listed. You got a booklet, a 3-ring binder, the first part of it is all the salaries, it had a list of every roster position we had. A lot of them we put in the general fund and we count on the special aid fund to then reclass those positions over to, which creates that surplus for the next year.
Yeah. And that's when you gotta start, I'm not saying that we have to get rid of anybody, but we have to prioritize.
You really
So it
gotta-
would be good to mark out those positions that
Yeah.
we hired specifically for COVID, extra things like that, which ones those are, when we look at the budget.
Okay,
We're not gonna remember that.
Yeah.
We're not.
I remember it.
I'm sure you do, that's why I asked you.
I remember everyone,
Um,
He said,
Okay, so we'll do this down for now, we'll move on to,
Cool, so I
update on
don't-
Wednesday, if anybody has questions, and if anybody has any questions on our grants, and, I don't think we took any questions for transportation, so if anybody calls in,
I think the state's on the line.
the state.
the state on the line.
He has a stake on the line
New York
back at the house.
We're the state, state on the line. So, yeah, so Deb.
Okay, yeah, okay, so residency verification update on the high school tuition particularly was the question. Right now, today, we have 293, what I'm gonna call regular, full-time students that attended East Hampton High School for the 20 days in October, okay? 10 special ed children,
In addition to those.
yes,
in
Plus
addition to
30 hybrid, okay? For a total of 333 students. Then you add another 13 students who were not in attendance for the full 20 days. The high school actually broke it down between attending 2 to 18 days, okay? I do not know where the remainder is, because if you remember, we were at like 357 students. So that's where Josh came in and he got the attendance records. So we're gonna see those students that were non-attendance, which probably got dropped after 21 days. Those that might enrolled, okay, to make up that difference. So this number from October is a little bit reduced. It's 346 right now for the high school. Okay, we did have Tina Giles go out to homes, like I reported that the last time. 100 students were checked on. It was 29 homes. So on average, there are 3 students to a home. That's not just high school, that's all of our children, K through 8.
Say that again?
Checked on 100 homes.
No, she checked on 100 students in 29 homes. That's an average of about 3 students per home. And multiple last names in some cases.
So what happens to those students that attended anywhere between 2 and 18 days and the high school considers them dropped? We're no longer paying? We don't pay for October?
No, we pay. So I don't pay for the full month. A full month is 20 days for October. So I paid partially. Like the student that was there for literally 2 days, I paid only 2 days.
Oh, so everything is prorated.
Right.
Yes.
But what I don't know is whether those 2 students just entered or did those two students just exit. That's where the attendance comes in. Okay, so now I have to go back, and they gave me the names of the students, so it's easy enough to go back, check the attendance. Is that a new kid who only attended for 2 days, or is that a kid who exited? Because remember, they're not disenrolling with us, they're disenrolling at the high school. I'm not getting the request for records, so no, I don't know if somebody moved.
Shouldn't you get that?
That's,
Did you request it?
this is what I got so far. Well, we're taking baby steps, and 2 years now, we've been getting not only attendance records, but we get grades.
Baby steps. Well, they should be, whenever we ask for it, they should supply us. Taxpayers' money that they're playing with.
We only started asking for this like 2 years ago. This is like our 3rd year getting it.
Should have been done soon. At least we're getting it now.
We're gonna know, yeah.
Okay.
That should be-
But that situation with the, like 3 students in one house with different last names, does it go past that, or we just kind of, 3 students went into that house and that's just the end of it?
Gina Giles checks on the house, checks with the landlord. You know, she sees some of the kids, she doesn't see some of the kids. But she's verifying that, yes, these are the people that live in the house. That's her job. That's what we
I
hire her
guess
for.
my question was more like, like how does this tie in with like, with our communication with our parents, in terms of getting responses back from parents, and then obviously, student academics, things like that. I mean, I think it all should be, it shouldn't just be like big mystery. Like I would think like we would know those students. Like there should be a story about each of those students. And I would think like as a school, we should know who they are. Does that seem unreasonable?
Is that directed to me?
To anybody.
No, I think we do know our students, and I think we do know their stories. But there is some movement in our
Yeah,
community.
I think those are the ones you have the most struggle with.
Yeah, of
is
course.
the new ones that come in and the ones that leave mid-year,
Yes.
then they come back in the spring.
Right, and that's
It's
because
those
of
kind of-
housing
Yeah.
and things like that. We also saw a big influx of older kids this year, which I haven't seen before.
That's your 7th
9th
grade.
grade and up, for the first time coming here, So it's shifting a little bit, but yes, but we should know that. Of course we should. Of course we should. It's our community,
But it is hard to know
Of course, yeah.
older kids who are at the high school.
because we don't see them every day.
And well, you don't, and a lot of them really didn't go through
They didn't go
No,
here.
no, they're coming right from their
They're
countries.
coming from their countries,
Yes.
so we don't know that.
We don't know them.
Yes.
We don't know their stories.
Right, but on the same time, it's only been 13, you said, out of the 29? Around the country,
Yes,
out of the 29?
yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So to say it's not the whole,
Not out of 29, 26 new high school students. 13 were from out of the country,
50%,
the other 13. But the biggest number, believe it or not, was from Sag Harbor. And that we never seen before either.
Yeah, but that they Sag Harbor priced them out of the market.
Correct.
Basically.
It's all about money.
Yeah. Else they went crazy everywhere, including Springs.
So it's 9 o'clock, I think we have goal setting on here.
I
Is this
think
something
we
want to
should
Table this for another
Table
time?
this for another time.
That's a good goal setting.
And
like
the
the
other one
banner.
regarding the Longwood Regional Legislative Breakfast, that they just need responses.
I sent that out to you guys, the email, but if you're interested, go ahead and just email me back and I'll put you on the list.
I'll be attending.
What's the breakfast? That's not really the breakfast.
It's a breakfast where there's, legislators are all there and people tell the legislators what their concerns
Do they
are.
have bacon?
There's no bacon in that.
No, there's no bacon and eggs.
All
No.
back to that breakfast?
The bacon and eggs at the 8th grade breakfast was spectacular. Special shout out to our Springs Fire Department and a special shout out to Ms. Cleary and Mr. Odom and the PTA for a wonderful float with
So much fun.
Mr. Jones and the band and Mrs. Kelly. Great weekend at Springs.
And there's another pancake breakfast this weekend for
For
this
junior.
year's junior class graduating next year. They're having their pancake breakfast fundraiser this weekend.
Oh, good.
So is that on our website for our parents to see?
I'm not sure,
No,
but
but we should.
ask
No,
them
For the
if
high school class.
And they can buy tickets right at the door. It's $10.
For for the high school
It's for the
kids.
high school kids, the other kids are graduating next year. So they're junior prom.
Oh, do we usually send out an email about that, just to give people a heads up?
We post stuff on our website
I
or.
can send the information to each other, but from the high school.
Yeah, you should post it.
Yeah,
A couple kids want to know.
We do, a few.
Apparently we have, 300 and.
The PTA posted on the Springs School PTA website.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
you gotta-
346 to be exact.
Okay, LTV, if there are any more questions at this time, if anybody had a question about, residency or anything else, final chance to call in.
We have no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions here from anybody else? Great, well, in that case, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
You're a
Thank you.
minute
Night, everybody.
Thank you, Jason.
You're a minute.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.